Hello and welcome to another episode of the Father and Son Pastime Podcast. I'm Patrick.
I'm Kevin. How are you?
That's my dad. Dad, we got a draft today.
Good.
People have been wanting, you're talking about the trade deadline, you're doing your home run derby predictions, you're doing your over-under predictions. Where and when is the next draft going to be? Well, it is today, folks, August 19th, 2023. We're bringing you, just like we did, Dad, with the MVP draft, we're doing a Cy Young draft. I've already obviously queued up my co-commentator here. We have all of our research done, but for those listening at home, let me tell you the parameters of the draft. Obviously, there are rules. You're not just drafting the best ever. You're not just going to do Carlton and Palmer and Randy Johnson. So, let's go with what we're drafting today and then who is eligible. We're going to go for a starting rotation. We're going to go for a true starting five, and then a reliever / a closer, because there's several relievers / closers that have gotten the Cy Young over the years. Not many, but enough for discussion. The rules, just like all those names I mentioned, they cannot be in the Hall of Fame. The purpose of this is to not just talk about the best 10, 12, whatever pitchers in the history of baseball. It's almost highlighting the best 10, 12 non-Hall of Fame seasons that a pitcher's ever had. Kind of the... Who was that guy? What year did he pitch? Why isn't he in the Hall of Fame, maybe? Just like we did for the MVP draft, we had a rule that you can only have won the MVP once. We're only going to allow for you to win the Cy Young once. So people like Roger Clemens, Yohan Santana, Tim Lincecum, Brett Saberhagen, and Denny McLain are ineligible. I don't remember for our MVP draft if we allowed current MVP winners in. I think we did. We are allowing current Cy Young active players in this draft, but again, if they are multiple winners such as Kershaw, Verlander, Scherzer, Kluber, or DeGrom, you're ineligible. One-time winners, not in the Hall of Fame, but can still be playing, and obviously have physically been in the Cy Young Award era. So basically, your birth year, Dad, so no Christy Mathewson, no Walter Johnsons, and obviously no Cy Young himself.
Three-finger Brown.
Sure, exactly, that guy. Mordecai. Was he a Cub?
He was.
Oh, my God. I knew some old-timer would be a Cub.
And you need to tell the audience that up until a certain day, there was one Cy Young Award winner for both leagues, and then they changed, as I think they got into maybe the 60s, and had Cy Young for both leagues.
Yes.
So for a while, it was just one.
It was just one, kind of like the NBA MVP. But now there's been two, like you said, since the 60s. I want to say 63, give or take.
Something like that. But the listeners should know.
Yes, of course, the intrepid listeners. But yeah, I just really like to dive. I forgot who out of, obviously, these, it could have been one of your highlights, Dad, that I just came across on Baseball Reference a couple weeks ago, and I was like, who is this? Oh, it was Lamar Hoyt. It was Lamar Hoyt, a Chicago White Sox. I've never heard of the person before.
Number 31.
Had an incredible Cy Young year, and I'm like, this should be talked about more. Yeah. So I really want to bring out, Dad, those maybe non-famous names, obviously the non-Hall of Famers, to say, this was the best season. Why isn't he in the Hall of Fame? It should be recognized more, etc., etc.
He only had one good season.
I know, and then I think he led the league in losses the next season.
Yeah,
so
he wasn't one to do a lot of wind sprints in the outfield, but that one year he was golden, and that's when the White Sox were really good. They had funky uniforms back then, and they had some pretty good pitching staff and everything else, but that was kind of the era of Harold Baines and everything.
Yeah. So you might be hearing his name later in this draft, folks. But in the case of exactly Lamar Hoyt, we only care about his Cy Young season. So if you just had lightning in a bottle and you were great in 1978, just picking a year, don't even know that was a year for Lamar Hoyt, then that's what we care about for the rotation-making draft that we're about to do. Don't care about your previous season, your after season, or your overall career. Just what won you the Cy Young. That's the stats we care about. Dad, do you have any questions before we begin?
Nope, I'm ready.
All right, so we are going to draw cards, just like we always do here. And it's a snake draft, so if you get the higher card, Dad, you can choose to go first, or you could choose to go second / third in that snake draft.
All right, I'm just picking here. I'm not looking either. 8 of hearts.
Okay, that's beatable. All right, I am going to cut the deck. Queen! All right, now I finally won a draft. I think it's probably my the pull. I win a lot of drafts. I just don't win a lot of card pulls. So now I'm blocking my thing, Dad. I'm trying to see
it's all right.
who
block
would make.
Away.
Should I do the first pick or the second and the third? This is tough. I'm going to take the first overall pick.
Okay.
I think there is a clear one for me, and I want to get him. I want to tease up a little bit. When I was looking at my list, Dad, these are the types of pitchers I wanted. I wanted 20-plus wins. I wanted a sub-3 ERA. You'd be surprised at how many people won the Cy Young with an above-3 ERA. Mm-hmm. 200 strikeouts and pitch for 200 innings or more. This first guy meets all of those and more. In 1985, for the New York Mets, in his second season at only of age 20, Dwight Gooden takes home the Cy Young. He is my first overall pick, Dad. In my rotation, he is, I guess, my ace. And let me just flex those stats a little bit for you. He went 24-4 out of one of the best non-Hall of Famer seasons for the Cy Young. A league-leading 1.53 ERA. He had 16 complete games. Again, he was only 20 years old. 8 shutouts, 276 innings pitched, and 268 strikeouts. According to WAR, this is the best Cy Young season ever, including Hall of Fame pitchers. He was a unanimous Cy Young winner, and according to MLB, he was the 4th all-time best pitching season, and this goes back to even Christy Mathewson and Walter Johnson. So Dwight Gooden, 1985, a hell of a start to his career. I'm taking Doc.
Good for you. And his son is now playing football for the University of Maryland.
That's awesome. A little local connection there.
Yeah, Dylan.
Yes. And then he was the year before was a World Series champion with the 84 Mets, right? So
yeah, that's true.
Winning a World Series at 19, pretty great.
All right, I got the next 2.
You got the next 2, and then I have 4 and 5, and so on and so on.
That's okay. You ready?
Yes.
Bob Welch is my first pick.
He was on my list. Tell me about Bob Welch.
1990, 27-5.
An A, I believe. An Athletic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oakland had a good team back then, believe it or not.
I know that was a great year for them.
27-5. 2.95 ERA, and he went on to have a good career. 271 and 146 for a career. Bob Welch was part of that unique A's lineup back in the 90s that had great pitching, and he was very unheralded back in that era. But to me, I thought he was head and shoulders above many folks that are on the list.
I will openly say that I do not have anyone with 27 wins or more, so you will have beaten me in total wins if that is something you care about at home. But the ERA obviously is a little high. Definitely would still qualify in my under 3 is great. But yes, 1990 Bob Welch.
And then my second pick, David Price.
Whoa! Go ahead. Tell me about David Price.
You know what? I went for his career stats, but when he was with the Tampa Bay, that was his prime years. Mm-hmm. But I think in one of the prime years, he was 23 and 10, something of that nature, and just lit it up back then. He had consecutive years, probably 4 years in a row with the A's, that he was the ace by far. But the Cy Young year, I think, was 23 wins off the top of my head.
I'm looking him up now. He was not in my top 10, but I love that fact you got a lefty. I think that matters. He was 20-5 that year with a 2.56 ERA, over 200 innings pitched, over 200 strikeouts, pretty even in that K-to-9 ratio. 12th in the MVP voting that year. David Price. Bob Welch is a righty, right? I'm not too familiar.
Bob is a righty.
All right, awesome.
Yeah, I'm off to a hell of a start.
I am very happy the direction you went. Welch was a backup. Price was 11th or 12th choice, but I like what you went with the lefty. I'm very happy now to do my 4th and 5th, everybody. I'm going to go ahead. I grabbed a young rookie phenom. I feel like just like Spencer Strider with the Braves, every good team has this phenom. I'm going to go ahead and grab an MVP, and that is Vida Blue. I figured that's what I thought you would grab. I thought both Gooden and Vida Blue were the 1 and 2 choices here. I am most impressed with his 24 complete games. He had 8 shutouts. He was 24-8. So if you had through a complete game, he won it. I thought that was kind of a cool stat.
Back then, they did complete games.
1971, Cy Young and MVP. That's been done about, I want to say, 10 to 12 times in the history of baseball. Not a Hall of Famer. I'm surprised. 1.82 ERA. He had the ERA title, league leading. Both one of the, I think, I don't know about one of, but for me on my list, the only one with over 300 innings pitched and over 300 strikeouts. 312 innings pitched, 301 strikeouts. So I am very happy getting a workhorse that's going to go all those innings and truly shut down the teams too. So
He was only 5'11".
good for him. I mean, Marcus
But he
Stroman's
was
5'5".
But he was a bull. But I saw him pitch at Memorial Stadium, and he wore number 35, and he was a very hard thrower, and probably in his young pitching career, he was probably the most feared left-hander in the bigs.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a great to see him in person.
Well, now that I don't have to worry about so many of my top picks getting taken, I'm between two here. I love the idea of a unanimous winner. Of taking, I mean, a lot of the unanimous winners are, like I said, with either having a season like Dwight Gooden or they were a Hall of Famer. So I'm going to take Ron Guidry. Ron Guidry of the 1978 Yankees, 25-3. No one on my list had less losses, as a starter at least. A 1.74 ERA, 16 complete games, 9 shutouts, 273 innings pitched, and 248 strikeouts. Every single Cy Young vote went to him that year, just like Dwight Gooden. So I am 3 for 3 with pitchers with the ERAs under 2. Good luck hitting me.
What was his nickname for $1?
No idea.
Louisiana Lightning.
Wouldn't have got that. Raging Cajun, everybody, right? Something like that. Both of your picks are over 2.0. So I am very curious where you go from here, Dad, and obviously don't forget the relievers.
Oh, I got. In fact, now that you mention, I'm going to go with my reliever, who is by far the best, Sparky Lyle.
Whoa, not one of the two I was considering.
238 saves.
No, we're only down for the Cy Young season.
But I'm just telling you, overall, you know what? He was originally signed by the Orioles. Got signed by Boston. Boston traded him to the Yankees. They say that's the second worst trade that the Red Sox had with the Yankees in the history of baseball.
So Babe Ruth and Sparky Lyle.
Uh-huh.
I have his season stats if you need it.
Sure, go for it.
So 13-5, not that matters so much for a reliever. A 2.17 ERA. He pitched in 72 games,
yes.
Most in baseball for a pitcher that year. But only had 26 saves. I don't think saves were that sexy back then.
Correct. They didn't have the stats that they do now.
But he threw 137 innings
yeah.
for a reliever. That's insane. Not even starters hit that today. But not a big strikeout guy. Only 68 strikeouts. 6th in MVP voting. Openly was not my top even 3 choices for reliever/closer.
Back in Sparky's era, they came in the 7th, 8th, and 9th and pitched multiple innings.
I'm sure.
They weren't a one-inning save guy. And back then, the saves that they calculated were much different than today.
Openly, I did not pick Eric Gagne, who is like sort of my great closer, had an electric year for the Cy Young, but I went with someone from Sparky's era that got a lot of innings as well. So not just a 9th inning guy for me either.
All right, I'm going my next one, Orel Hershiser.
Go ahead. I knew somebody would take him, but it wasn't going to be me. Obviously a Dodger, probably the most. Him and Gooden probably so far the most recognized names on our list.
Mm-hmm. Consistently great, and then fell off as a career went forward. But he was the man for the Dodgers for a long time.
Was he a righty or lefty?
Righty.
Okay, cool. You're pretty balanced. I really don't take in consideration right, left, or right. The fact that I am now getting some of my top choices, you feel like you're getting your top choices, it's going to be a great debate in the comments. Please feel free. Who's winning? Midway, pause the video, give a comment after half the votes, half the picks have been in. Who's winning right now? Dad, I'm obviously going to sit on my reliever. I don't need him. So I'm going to go ahead and round out my rotation. I'm going to go with a workhorse of Randy Jones from 1976.
Oh, my. Soft tosser.
Yes, and that's okay. Because any guy that pitches 315 innings, the most, just a little bit more than Vida Blue. Also, a nice little note that both Randy and Vida Blue were the only 2 pitchers who qualified. That means, didn't win it multiple times, not in the Hall of Fame, that had 300 innings pitched or more.
Which no one even comes close to anymore.
No, 200 is celebrated.
Yeah.
I think Randy Jones also faced the most amount of batters that year, if you care about that stat at all. He is my worst ERA right now, so that's okay. He's the back of my rotation. A 2.74 ERA, but has 25 complete games. He went 22-14. Again, most losses. I hear the argument. He only had 93 strikeouts, like you said, soft tosser, but he didn't get injured. He pitched every game and gave his team a fighting chance. Rainey Jones is a Cy Young winner, and now he's in my back of my rotation. But like I said, I am showcasing 71, 76, 78, and 85 so far. My next pick, I want to, I think, showcase someone more recent. And I have a couple options. It's just tough. I know I have my notes. I'm just looking. Yeah, I'm going to go... That's tough. All right, I'm going to change it up on myself. I know you even see the note that says 10th choice. I'm going to go with Roy Halladay. Now, the reason being, I personally don't like Roy Halladay as a person. However, I get a perfect game with this choice. Only one that I believe is eligible for the Cy Young draft. I know Sandy Koufax threw a perfect game, but he's not eligible. Won it multiple times in the Hall of Fame. So 2010, perfect game. I get a 21-10 Roy Halladay, a 2.44 ERA, 9 complete games in 2010, 4 shutouts. He still threw over 250 innings, and he had 219 strikeouts. I wanted someone from the modern era, but hold on. I think I just lied to my own self. When Roy Halladay died, he was admitted to the Hall of Fame. I totally forgot about that. Feel free to nice history lesson with the perfect game. I'm out. So sorry, Jake Arrieta. You just got slotted in. Jake Arrieta's 2015. I'm so sorry for fans at home. My dad's more prepared for this draft than me.
You won't hear that again.
I forgot because he died so suddenly. I forgot that he got into the Hall of Fame really quickly. Jake Arrieta, 2015, he somehow beat out Zach Greinke, which I know is a contested because I thought Zach Greinke should have got his second Cy Young. But 22-6, a 1.77 ERA, 4 complete games, 3 shutouts. He had more strikeouts than innings pitched, which out of anyone on my list, he's the only person on my list that has more strikeouts than innings pitched. 236 strikeouts and 229 innings pitched. So Jake Arrieta, of all people, round out my list.
Great thing about Jake was probably in the top 3 worst trades the Orioles have ever made. He came over and he was not great as an Oriole. In fact, he was open day starter, but he could not figure it out in Baltimore, so they gave up on him. Cubs took a chance, literally took a chance on him. It was, Pedro Strop came with that trade. And then all of a sudden they moved him from one side of the rubber to the other side of the rubber, and everything just started to work.
Yeah.
And
for that 1 year, it clicked,
Well, for multiple years.
Yeah, but then it was over.
Yeah.
I think he still has more losses than wins in his overall career.
I'll
check, but
I think he probably has more wins than losses, but with the Orioles he did not. With the Cubs he did. Because once he started to fade, he faded, and then the Phillies weren't good to him either.
Yep.
But he had a stellar career, and just it was so funny. The first time the Cubs got to a wild card, the Cubs were on a plane, and they were going to play Pittsburgh for the wild card, and Jake stood up and went, "Hey, I'm pitching. We don't have anything to worry about." That he was that confident.
Yeah.
So it was one of the great stories that came out of that year.
I'm going to see if there's any postseason pitching.
Oh, yeah.
No, they keep the logs of it. I just want to see if that's batting. That doesn't do us any good. All right. Move on. Yeah, forget it. He did have more wins than losses, but not by much. Show postseason pitching. There we go. He's 5-3 in the postseason. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. He won twice in the World Series year, and that's all that matters for the Cub fans.
2016 will live in infamy.
Yeah.
All right, my next 2.
Yeah, round it out. You close out the draft. Well, actually, I come back with a relief pitcher, but yeah.
CC Sabathia.
Oh, my God. Not even on my list. Just because of that 1/2 season with Milwaukee.
Well, that and then he was great there, and then he had stellar years with the Yankees as well. And my next choice is Mike Flanagan. And Mike Flanagan had 27 victories.
So you cared more about the wins, I think.
I did.
Okay.
Because wins, pennants.
Wins, pennants. So, all of my people are above 20 wins, though.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
But Flanagan, I mean, he was consistent, but that 1 year, I think it was 27-5, if I'm not mistaken, with a good ERA, and he was a true leader of the Orioles back then when the Orioles had a phenomenal pitching rotation with Scotty McGregor and those guys. So, yeah. And then, I had others and all that stuff, but I think that's a solid 5.
I am between two. I have the for relievers. I am between taking an MVP and a World Series winner for my. I've talked about this person on this podcast multiple times.
I know where you're going.
However, there is a person that pitched more games. God, this is tough. I have workhorses. I don't need that get the biggest guy out of the pen. This is tougher than I thought. I'm gonna go ahead and yes, I'll just take Willie Hernandez now.
I knew you would.
I was fine getting either of my top two.
Who's the other one?
Mike Marshall.
Me too.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about Willie, but I will talk about Mike because the point of this is I've never heard of this person until doing this draft. So Willie Hernandez, I don't know how many times I've talked about Willie on this podcast.
Phenomenal year.
Cy Young, MVP, and World Series winner. Really feels like the trifecta. 9-3, who cares? 1.92, hello. 80 games, get the hell out of here. 32 saves, threw 140 innings, and got 112 strikeouts. The reason Mike Marshall deserves credit, he was third in MVP that year in 74. He threw 106 games. Not even play. Yeah. Chris Bryant can't get to that many. However,
that's the line of the day.
However, he was 15-12. Not a great percentage. He had a 2.42 ERA. But he threw 208 innings as a reliever, people. Started 0 games, no openers. 143 strikeouts and 21 saves. Both were neck and neck. I don't think one is truly better than the other. Willie has just got more accolades.
Yes. Mike Marshall started as a starting pitcher in Montreal.
Mm-hmm. Expo.
And then he kind of almost like some of the other great pitchers that have gone into relief, he went in there and he used to come in the 7th inning and go 7, 8, 9. That's how reliable he was back in the day with the Dodgers. And, he was the man. And think about a relief pitcher today pitching 3 innings a clip and then coming in the next day and 3. They don't do that anymore. If you go 3 innings, they shut you down for a couple days.
Yeah.
So you can imagine how great his arm was back in that era to pitch that amount of innings consecutively and not shut him down. He was always available. So to me, he was a real iron horse.
I think it's funny that I went more in your generation, like your teenage years, your college years of players, and I stayed away from outside Jake Arrieta any newer players. I have no one from, besides Arrieta, Dwight Gooden from 85 is my second youngest player. You went 2 out of 5 for people in the 21st century, and everyone is above, I think, 1980. Flanagan was either 79 or 80, I think. David, let's review. If you've been following along, he has probably, if you total it up, more wins, and I have a better ERA. Bob Welch, David Price, Orel Hershiser, CC Sabathia, and Mike Flanagan with Sparky Lyle
hell of a rotation
coming out of the pen. I will give you one thing, Dad. Outside, CC could be a Hall of Famer, so right now that's eligible. The rest obviously are not Hall of Famers. It is the purpose of this podcast, of this draft, was to shine a light on some great seasons where they didn't, they didn't have these Hall of Fame careers, and I think you did that. Mine is Dwight Gooden, Vida Blue, Ron Guidry, Randy Jones, Jake Arrieta, and Willie Hernandez coming out of the pen. I think Willie Hernandez is like my personal ride or die at this point. I talk about how good he was too many times. I didn't know much about Guidry or Jones. Obviously, I saw Jake Arrieta's Cy Young career. I couldn't believe that season happening at all. I'm like, what the hell? He was an Oriole. What the hell? And then Dwight and Vida just being truly insane years. I've looked at both of their stats. I don't know how they didn't get to Hall of Fame, considering we're going to be putting in, and I'm not trying to knock Zach Greinke or anything like that. We're going to be putting in people of Dwight Gooden and Vida Blue's stat lines, but in this generation. We're never going to see 300 ending 300 wins again. We're never going to see 3,000 strikeouts, in my opinion. Like the Adam Wainwright's will probably be a Hall of Fame career in 10, 15 years, and we're going to look back on Dwight Gooden and Vida Blue and be like, why did these guys not make it?
Because the game was different.
Game was different. You're absolutely right, and you're only as good as your era. But
yeah, these days, if someone gets in trouble, they yank them fourth, fifth inning, and not eligible for a win.
Dwight Gooden, no, that's it's still searching. Come on, losing internet. Dwight Gooden has 194 wins, only 112 losses, a 3.51 lifetime ERA, almost 3,000 innings pitched, and 2,300 strikeouts.
Think if he stayed healthy.
Yeah.
His second half of his career, he was snake bitten with shoulder problems and everything else. He was so strong he started when he was 19, 20 years old as a starting pitcher. Mm-hmm. Just think if he could have got into his mid-late 30s, what stats he could have had.
Well, I look at the strike as a huge thing because he set out the entirety of 95 season, and then he had the shortened 94. So you add, let's just 25, 30 wins, I think it's a different conversation. Vida Blue, he had an injury late in his career too, but he still had over 200 wins, had a 3.27 lifetime ERA. He threw 3,300 innings.
That's a lot of innings.
Yeah,
he came up very young. His first year, I think he was 20 or 21, Vida Blue.
19 was his first full season. Was hilariously at age 21, where he got the Cy Young and MVP.
Yeah, think about that for a minute.
Yeah, I got some young studs.
Yeah,
for their Cy Young years. But yeah, and obviously Vida Blue just died this year, so I wanted to 100% include him. I thought you would take him, but selfishly, I'm happy I got him.
I had him highlighted and asterisked.
Well, I wore Dad a Astros shirt. Obviously, the most recent Cy Young winner technically is an Astro, Justin Verlander, one of. I don't have a Miami Marlins shirt. But when I was going through my research, I would look at like Hall of Famers, winning the Cy Younger and all that, or multiple winners. I'm like, why isn't Nolan Ryan's name coming up? Nolan Ryan has never won a Cy Young. And we did this draft to highlight the Cy Young winners that, don't have the attention. There are plenty of pitchers out there in the Hall of Fame. Jack Morris, Mike Mussina, Nolan Ryan.
John Lester.
Not in the Hall of Fame, but that's where I'm going.
Yeah.
That are whatever, still phenomenal pitchers, but maybe came in second or third in these Cy Young voting, or were phenomenal pre the Cy Young era. So don't let just the awards, the ERA title, the most strikeouts, the most wins, predict a pitcher's success. Like, there are plenty of ways and roads to Cooperstown that you don't need, brass and silver and gold to get yourself in there. Like, just compile yourself a career like Nolan Ryan, and you'll get in the Hall of Fame. You don't need to win a single individual award, and you'll still make Cooperstown.
Well, and let's face it, he pitched to his mid-40s.
Oh, yeah. He's a workhorse that's unlike any workhorse.
Correct. And, a lot of times his record was around 500, and I'm sure that hurt him along the way because he wasn't on great teams along the way.
No.
So when he started pitching, I think it was California, Mets, Rangers, and I may be missing another team, but those teams weren't Astros. They weren't great teams, and he ended up with 15 and 14, 16 and 13, so he just didn't take the hump, but he kept his team in games all those years.
He had multiple losing seasons.
Yeah.
As a full-time starter. With pretty much every team that you mentioned, he had a losing season with at one point or the other. Even if when we did the best pitcher for each team in the history, Nolan Ryan wasn't really, I think, our choice for any of those teams statistically. You look at the Mets, and it's just like, well, there's a guy named Tom Seaver that was a better pitcher than you, Nolan Ryan.
Yeah, for that year.
For those years, yeah.
And same staff for a couple of years.
Yeah, and Seaver still dominated. But yeah, it's just very interesting to show that you don't even have to be the best pitcher on your team to make the Hall of Fame. You look at the 90s Braves and you go, all right, do I have to face Maddox or Glavine or Smoltz today? And you can obviously benefit from a really great offense.
You lose that series.
Which is obviously the Tom Glavine argument that he doesn't deserve, quote-unquote, the Hall of Fame. He just had such great offense of Chipper Jones and Andrew Jones and those guys that his wins are inflated. He's still a great pitcher, whatever you want to say.
He had great defense behind him as well.
I will ask Dad one question before we close out and we get down a rabbit hole.
I was going to do one quick thing. Hall of Fame, Harper is quoted this week saying he wants the Hall of Fame game to go back to Cooperstown and play that game in Cooperstown. So I thought that was an interesting quote from him this week. I don't know how they're going to do with that small stadium.
I don't know either. Just a press game. I don't know. Even the press could fill that. The press could fill that stadium.
Well, it was interesting. Harper said that this week.
I think he just wants easy home runs. You could throw the ball over that fence. He could. I mean, Trevor Bauer threw it over the center field wall of Cleveland.
And if you've never been to Cooperstown, make sure you do go to that stadium. It holds 500, 600 people.
Double-day field.
Yeah. And you go there and you look and go, my Lord. And they had games there until, what?
They still have, not professional games, but they still have,
Senior league games and all-star games and yada, yada,
yada.
yada.
Seriously.
But, I mean, if you go to there in today's society, whew, man, it will be a high-scoring affair. But do visit that stadium.
Dead. Out of anyone that you have looked at your list, or obviously that made our top 12, hypothetically, rotation and relief, would you put any of those names in the Hall of Fame? And if the answer is yes, you have to take a pitcher out to replace them. Would you do that? And if so, who would you pull out of Cooperstown?
Woo! That's a hell of a question.
I'm well aware.
The only one that I would lean towards is Dwight Gooden. I'm not sure who I would take out, but I think Dwight was so good for so long. I think he is one that deserves to be in there, but I don't know who I would take out. I think it'd be Gooden. How about you?
Oh, well, I will take any opportunity to take out Jack Morris from the Hall of Fame I can. 3.9, just as Jack Morris's numbers, I just want to share. He had a 3.9 ERA. Out of all the people we've really looked up for their career, that's higher. 254 wins. I think that's equal to CC, or right around the same number. He did pitch. I mean, he never got injured, to Jack Morris's credit. He pitched over 3,800 innings. But he also gave up 3,500 hits in those innings. And he was not a dominant strikeout guy outside his, I think, Cy Young season of 2,400 strikeouts. He was obviously on the same team as Willie Hernandez, or some people think that if there wasn't Willie, Jack Morris would have got the Cy Young. I would...
Well, he saved all those games for him.
I know. I would take out Jack Morris just because of the opportunity, and I'd put in Vida Blue. I think Vida Blue finds his way in, especially now that he's deceased, maybe through some sort of older committee. Mm-hmm. It's an Oakland Athletic. Those jerseys are fun. And I really do think Vida Blue just had a slightly better career. I really think it's equal to Jack Morris's, but a slightly better career than Dwight Gooden. Dwight had the better Cy Young year, but I think Vida was just truly fantastic. Yeah. But I think CC will find his way in the Hall of Fame anyways.
I agree, especially playing in New York.
So looking at your list, if I had to choose from your list, I would do CC for Jack. And again, no problem. Jack Morris family, come at me. I'm tagging Jack Morris.
He wasn't glib with the press for all those years.
Neither was Dale Murphy, and he should be in the Hall of Fame.
Dale had a great on a poor team.
Back-to-back MVPs, right?
Yeah, on a poor team.
All right. Yeah. Before we start getting into who should be in Cooperstown and who should not, because we could talk about that for an hour, let's wrap up, Dad. It was good to do a draft again. It was quicker than I thought, actually. Some of our drafts take a really, really long time.
Well, we had more names than the other drafts.
And we only had a draft of rotation versus the whole team.
Correct.
So thank you for watching. Give us more draft ideas. I have plenty of percolating in the old brain. August baseball is always really slow for me, so I get really creative when, 15 teams are out of it. We kind of know who the playoff teams are going to be. There's like a couple fights. There's not that much going on. September will be fun. October will be insanely fun. So enjoy the rest of the season. If you are also bored by August baseball, give us a like, subscribe to our channel. We have hundreds of hours of footage from all these episodes in the past. Get caught up. And then, I don't know if I said this, subscribe and follow us on all our socials. We are at Pastime Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, and we are the Father and Son Pastime Podcast on Facebook.
That's right. More watchers we need, so tell your friends.
Yeah, we're almost at 50 subscribers, Dad.
You know what? Pretty soon we'll be on, the ESPN late night.
Our goal was a long time ago to get to 100, but we appreciate all the almost every video we have people interacting with us on either our socials or on YouTube, so we really appreciate that. I read all the comments. I don't know if this guy does, but we love interacting with our fans, and we really like all the positive comments we get.
Yeah.
And thanks for those that do literally listen to every second of this, either on their drive or just doing whatever around their house.
And we've been to 23 baseball games so far this year. We'll be 24 soon. So when we say that we are baseball fans, we're baseball fans.
Yeah. Go enjoy a baseball game, get yourself a hot dog and Cracker Jacks, and enjoy the season while it's here. Thanks for watching.
Bye.